Bro, he's tired and his toe hurts, but he's still here anyway. Let's I gotta make sure that we're live here, and then we're gonna share. Well, I'm gonna share.
It's not just a simple toe hurt. I mean, it's
I saw your toe.
It's a pretty significant.
I hope that I wish that I didn't see your toe, but it's too late. There's some things that cannot be unseen.
No.
Chris the toe. Hello, everybody. We're here with Real Talk. I'm Nick. And I'm here with Chris the Toe Fry. Christopher the Toe Fry. We're here for another episode. We're here. It's a beautiful Wednesday. It's actually kind of pleasant outside, huh, Chris?
Yeah, it was, warm.
It was 74 degrees this morning.
It was warm, but there was a slight breeze, and it actually didn't feel like that punch in the face when you walked outside. You know, with the humidity.
Yeah. Well, it was 74 this morning, which typically it's about 81 at 7 a.m. when I walk outside. So, but yeah, we were walking outside earlier, and I was like, man, this is like I said, I kind of felt like an idiot for saying, dare I say, pleasant, but there was a breeze. Yeah. Right? It wasn't.
And cloud cover. So you didn't have that beaming, blistering heat lamp.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if that was. Well, I don't know. It's been sunny today. It's not like, I don't know. It was nice. I'm thankful. I'm in the moment, and that's good for me.
Welcome to the moment.
Yeah. No, that's great.
And welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show. Yeah. So listen, we want to start. Our show Monday, we didn't get into Consult, so we're going to start with Consult just to make sure that we're all good about that. We're going to talk about the Quick Tool today.
The Consult Quick Tool.
Yeah, so we were playing around with that today.
Writing about it a bit?
Writing about it a lot.
A lot.
Very
and still
specific writing about it. What do you think?
I think that it's a
quick tool.
It is a quick tool. It's very handy, and it works for the purpose that it was.
It's functional.
It is functional, and it's quick.
Again, well, not only that, but it's also like we say, we talk about the app and we talk about the website and we talk about how it's cross-platform. We talk about how it's secure. We talk about how it's a communication tool. We talk about how it's efficient. We talk about how it eliminates redundancy. So one of the things that we decided to implement a while ago was the ability, while you are on a secure HD video conference, to consultation, to be able to do things while you're in that consultations, take a note, create a task, send a message, send a document,
calendaring.
So it's one of those things. It's comprehensive. It's eliminating steps in the process so that.
Well, the video conference will flow quicker because you have the ability to.
You don't have to write notes, get off of the consultation, and then transcribe the notes into something, or schedule an appointment, or send a sheet of with a request of your client to do something, or write a date down to schedule the next appointment or the next conversation, or any of that. So,
let's start with a basic, and that's kind of a quick description of what the Quick Tool is. Okay.
Excellent segue, Chris.
Thank you. When you are involved in an HD video conference, what you're looking at on your phone basically is a large screenshot of the video of the person that you're speaking with. And then not portrait, but a little video of yourself is down in the corner in a smaller box. And underneath it, there are 4 little icons. And
there's actually 5, but 1 is hidden.
Right. And when you hit the Quick Tool icon, a bar pops up that has a button.
Like a servy bar, or a mixy bar, like with vodka, gin, rum, tequila.
Yeah, no ice though.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All straight. Yeah.
So it's all straight. So it's got the icons on the bar. And one has one icon or button for each function. And so let's say you're on your video call and you want to take a note, like you said. You would press the note button or icon, and up pops your notes screen.
Let's hope Joe's not listening.
Yeah. It'd be like,
According to Joe, our developer, everything is a button. There are no icons.
right.
However, Chris and I, being the technologically challenged numbnuts that we are, like to refer to buttons as icons because, as far as I'm concerned, the only button I have is holding my pants up. That being said, we're wrong.
Right. So apparently, anything you press is a button, and if you have to slide it, it's a switch.
Or toggle.
or toggle switch.
Sure. Yeah. Not like a switch where,
right, just
like,
for
boy,
Joe
go get
out
a
there.
switch because I'm going to beat you switch.
Right. So
Or a light switch.
for Joe and Mike, our tech guys, there's your vocabulary for you.
Yeah,
we have to train you guys.
Yeah, we're trying. I think we've been good students, though.
I think so.
Oddly enough, they trust us with the verbiage to train others.
Yes,
Which
and,
is,
the
really-
good part is they also help proofread it before
Well, yeah.
we disseminate the verbiage.
Yeah, if anything's wrong, it's because they didn't read it well enough.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Nothing to do with the writing.
I'm proud of
skills.
us.
I'm proud too.
I mean, it's
I'm learning a ton.
when we printed out yesterday what we've written in the last 2-3 weeks.
Yeah,
Well, a little longer.
we've been-
You've done some stuff that's been a little bit longer, but we've been doing these tutorials now for 3-ish weeks, right?
Oh yeah, at least
2.5 weeks. And obviously recording them,
Right.
so that we can make videos down the line. But when you see it, actually, it's kind of like you put what you do to paper, right?
right. And the interesting thing, kind of like any kind of a writing assignment, the end product is basically it's almost like cooking, like a reduction of
Oh yeah, no.
massive amount of hours of research.
How
and
often? What
testing?
did we
and
do the
going
other
through-
day? How much did we redact off of that one project that we were working on?
Oh yeah, well,
Like five minutes of conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
At least 5 minutes of conversation we redacted.
Yep. So, and our old rule of thumb is better to put in more at first and redact than have to try and add to something.
Yeah, and like you
Which
said,
is horrible.
the first draft always sucks.
Yeah. That was Ernest Hemingway, one of my favorite quotes.
Oh man,
The first and this is a quote, the first draft of anything is shit.
well man, how many times have we gone? Like you and I will write something, and we think it's great, and then like we'll work on some other stuff, and inevitably we go back, and we'll look at it and be like, or we'll go to record it.
Yeah.
Right, is when we really notice it, and we're like,
Did we write
it was
that?
like, it was,
what were we thinking?
What guys were doing this shit? But when you work on,
Got commas everywhere.
yeah, oh, I love commas. I love commas. But
old-
when you're working on something, right? We're doing one after the other, where we'll sit next to each other for 10, 12 hours in a day,
Yeah, literally.
and like just go at it, right? Where we're like, we got the app open and we're like, press this button. What do you see? What happens? What
Right.
corner? How would you describe that? And then you walk out. But after you do 2 or 3 of those in a day, or 2 of them in a day, then you wait a couple of days. You go back. I have no idea what we wrote.
Right, and then when you go down and it's finally reduced to the final draft, it's like, wow, all of that work, and
This is all we have.
it's a 2 or 2.5 minute
Yeah.
video.
Yeah, it's between 2 and 3 minutes typically,
Right?
unless
So-
it's a long one. Then I think the longest one we have is about 3 minutes,
about
right?
three
maybe
and a half,
3.5 at max. Yeah, it's
And that's like you said, after like 13 to 17 hours worth of work and going through and testing it and learning the vocabulary. I think we've even created some vocabulary with the guys. about-
one of our, actually one of the things we forgot to put on that list yesterday was glossary,
Yeah, we're gonna have to do a glossary.
and then we got to organize everything, obviously.
Right.
But it's been amazing. The Quick tool, playing with it today, we realized that it's another one of those things that's going to eliminate time. And if you have a medium to large size firm and you're implementing this tool in your practice, again, it's eliminating steps. It's eliminating that redundant process.
Right.
And like in terms of speaking to your client, or with your client, I should say, not to, it's like one of those things where you're like, hey man, Yeah, listen, I'm just going to, and the cool part, is we were like, okay, let's describe to the clients or let's describe to our readers what they're going to see when we're doing this. And if you pop up that quick tool, right, and you're on the app and you're talking to somebody, they're going to continue to see you. And that video is going to be uninterrupted. Right now, your screen will pop up and it will show whatever you're working on and whatever you need to do. Right.
Right. Like if you're taking, if I'm calling you, and you're giving me information, I'm the attorney, for example, and I want to write down a date or a time or a witness name or phone number or something. I just, on the quick tool, I just tap it, say the notes part, you hit the note button,
right,
and the notes sheet pops up, and then you'll be providing information. And from your end, you can see me in full HD video. On my end, I'm typing the note in. And I can still see the little box in the corner, but you're doing it as you go so that you don't have to remember what was said or try to remember to the best of your recollection what was said during a conversation and thereafter have to either jot it down from what you wrote on a napkin or your pad or wherever else
It's one time. It's one time.
You're just putting it directly in and it's accurate. You could review it during the video.
Confirm it.
Did I get everything right? Everything's right. Thank you. Boom. Enter. It's in. And then you're back on the video and you can see face to face again.
And it's automatically saved.
Yes.
Right? And archived.
Yep.
It's archived in the library to where if you choose to share that said note with your client, they can see it,
Correct. And so
in real time.
Right. And it's got each of those things. One that I think kind of almost has like a hidden value, although it seems apparent, is the calendaring. I mean, just trying to organize dates and times.
How important is staying organized?
Oh, it's paramount.
I knew you were going to say that word.
Yeah,
I didn't want to
really
take it. I didn't want to take
I mean,
it from you, but we've written enough together to where
it's one of the primary considerations, and not only for the attorney
being inefficient. We've talked about this before, right? Is it unethical to be inefficient?
Yes, it could be.
Right? I mean, not only that, but if you're paying an attorney, right? Because I know I've paid an attorney, and I'm like, when they call me and they're like, hey, how are you? I'm like, look, cut the shit. I don't, let's cut the small talk. I'm paying you, right? And I'm not going to pay you a 1/10 of an hour for us to go through these like social normalities, right? Like, this is business. Let's get to it,
Right.
So in saying that, these little tools that we have, help tools, quick tools, are there for a reason. Like, there's a function and a form to them,
Yeah, and a direct purpose. Another one that's probably very common and many attorneys will relate to is documents. Now, we use the term document generically in a lot of the instructions and writings and tutorials, etc. But a document basically in Consult can be a text document or a PDF or a Word document.
Right.
It can be a photograph or a series of photographs. It can
be
a video. It can be an audio file, or it can be a scanned document, spreadsheet. All of those things are considered documents.
Yeah. A piece of paper that you send in with notes on it.
Right.
Any of that.
And what's nice about it is that each one, when you look in your archive, not only has a little date and description of what the item is, but it's got a different, I guess we can call those icons, a different icon next to it.
They show that they're different things.
Right.
They're different files,
PDF,
like JPEG, PDF, video file,
audio file,
MP4, MP3, whatever the hell it is. It's going to show you what it is and store it as such. And recognize it. You don't have to say, oh, this is coming in, I have to put this under this, or this is what it is, and label it. It already disseminates that for you, which is fantastic.
And we've spoken many times about Consult being a remote portable law office, because it's got all of your cases in there. Let's say you're in a parking lot, you got out of court, your client calls you, and you're on a video, and they want to, and
you're not ready for the call. I mean, you weren't expecting the call. I shouldn't say not ready. I should just say you weren't expecting. It's not a planned or scheduled call.
And that, I'm glad you said that, because that goes into what I was going to say, which is the client wants, say, they got their discovery or a police report or an accident report or whatever it may be, and they want to talk about a particular thing that was written in there that they think might be incorrect or it wasn't quite accurate. You can, on the Quick tool, hit Documents, pull up the file, look at the document, and while you're on a call with them, you can discuss the document. And they can tell you, well, here in the second paragraph, they wrote down this or that, and it wasn't quite accurate. And you can discuss that with them.
I'll call you right afterwards. That's fantastic. Say hi to Dave.
Hello, David. Am I on?
He's hey, Chris. Dave is officially here via the telephone. He wanted to tell us he missed us and he loved us.
He's by proxy.
He's here. Yeah, he's here by proxy. That's it. We were discussing. We're talking about the Quick tool.
Yes, and tell Dave he's privileged because you lifted your right muff to.
Yeah, I'm talking to you in my good ear.
And in the good ear, so that we can hear him.
All right, brother. We'll call you right back after the show. All right. Yeah, man. It's like you said. Getting that call, and not that you're not prepared, but having the app and doing that makes you prepared automatically, right?
Yes.
You could not only just take the call, you're taking the call or a video, right? You can look that person in the eye. It's secure, right? They can send you something right away through the app. It's
right.
Secure. It's archived automatically, right?
And when they send it to you, they can actually send it to you while you're on a call with them.
Right.
And then review it right then and there with them.
Right.
And, I mean, that's the beauty of it. When you're talking about saving time, you don't have to set an office appointment to talk about one phrase or word that they think may be.
Well, how about this? Hey, I picked
whatever.
this up, and instead of them muling it to the office or faxing it via an unsecure line, they can, use the document scanner and immediately put it in, right?
Right.
Or they could have it sent via like a PDF or,
Sure.
And it's just like one of those things. We eliminate the redundancy. It's efficient for the client. It's efficient for the attorney.
And as far as effectiveness of communication, how much more effective is discussing something like we're discussing face-to-face now, as opposed to people trying to text each other?
Oh, for
and
sure.
understand what text lingo they're using or what they're talking about.
Oh, well, first of all, texting is unethical.
It's not on a secure platform for the most part.
Right. You don't know who you're communicating with.
Correct. And you don't know who may have access to that text message when they lay
Or
their
the
phone
record,
down.
right?
Or who owns the account.
Or who owns the account.
You know, the person who owns the account.
Right.
Because most lawyers nowadays, when you tell them, hey, I'll give you a call tonight, or can I text you later, one of the first things they'll ask you is, whose phone are you calling from? Is that your phone, or is that a corporate phone?
Right.
Or who's, because they want to know who's
Sure.
going to have access. At least diligent attorneys will do that, and say, we want to know ahead of time. Is this secure? Because if you're texting me something, and I fire off something that's privileged,
Well,
or
you know
sensitive
that
information-
from personal experience.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, she's okay. She's with me.
right.
And then, what are
then-
you doing?
Then they break up
We're
a
not
week
together,
later.
and she's got my phone, and she's the one who's been texting you. What are you doing? And you're like, wait a minute, you told me.
Right.
Yeah.
This was your phone. And
Then
your
all of a sudden,
account.
it's your fault.
It's like, well, it is my phone, but it's really under her account.
Yeah. And they
now-
and they have that convenience of calling somebody their wife, which means that they've been dating for 6 weeks.
or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
that term has become. I mean, it's almost like
Yeah.
there's so many definitions.
No comment.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm single
So-
for a reason.
It's you basically, in essence, the attorney on Consult knows exactly where the information's going, and all of these things, the Quick tool, all of the functions on the Quick tool, everything is contained within the app. None of it goes outside of the app
Right.
to other programs
Right.
or applications.
Third party.
Right. There's no third party involved. Everything's encapsulated in a secure environment of the app.
I think one of the things that I shared with you was it was the Reuters report of the state of law, and they gave a statistic in there, and still I want to say it's like almost 20% of law firms forbade their attorneys to use their private phones outside of the firm.
Right.
Right. So forget about texting, just simply speaking to somebody and handling a call outside of the firm, they forbade it. So
right, and a lot of corporations do that too. They'll when you start, they'll issue you a cell phone with a number, and then a lot of times you see people carrying 2 or 3 cell phones, and one of them's their private.
They're called drug dealers.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Or serial cheaters.
Those are the track phones. You buy
burn phones.
Toss into the dumpster after your $49 is up.
Yeah, burn phones.
So. So the Quick tool, it's got basically 5 functions. One of the things for attorneys that they can use, which falls under the document section, is during the call they can send to a prospective client, we'll say, an intake form and a quick retainer.
Which is huge.
Yes, because you can have them actually completing their intake form with all the necessary biographical information, whatever you need them, a synopsis.
Let me ask you a question. About. You being an attorney, in terms of locking up that client as a client or prospective client to a client, how important is that function, and what do you think of the value of that function is, in
for client retention?
Well, you have to get them in order to retain them, right? But I mean, being able to close them via that video consult without even having them like wait 3 or 4 days. You have that initial. If they get you, and you answer, how important is it locking them down to be a client? Like,
it's your business.
Dare we say paramount?
We should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like. Okay, let me ask you this: like percentage-wise, what percentage, or how would we rate the quick close, the quick retainer, the quick intake form? Would we say that that's like 20% of your business? That's 30% of your business? Is it like how would we rate that? What do you think in terms of importance? How would you, if you could put a value on it and assign a value to that? Portion of your client relationship,
it would probably be in the top 5%, because that's why, like, you see all these firms, regardless of what advertising, et cetera, the advertising will bring a client or prospective client to contacting the office, whether it's word of mouth or a family referral, or we have the Attorney on Call platform on our app. But however it is that they get there, every law firm that I've ever known, one of the primary concerns is that when a call comes in, you want to get in touch with that client immediately.
It's getting the pipeline full, right?
Right.
It's filling the pipeline.
And you want to also be able to get them in to see you as quickly as possible. Sure. And that's usually where you run into some difficulties because of scheduling, because they may not be available. They might be at work. They might just be, on a lunch break, and they're either going through Google or some other method to find an attorney, and they don't have time to meet with you. With the Consult app, when you have the video consultation, you can do the meeting right then and there. And with these items we're talking about, you can get all the information from them that you would get with them sitting in your lobby of your law office, for example, on an intake form. And if you fill out the quick retainer, you can actually retain them during the call. And that is eminently important, because you now have a new client rather than a prospective client.
Right. And they're signed up.
Right. And then from there, you can set a time to meet with them or what have you, because, and we've discussed this before, when you're either trying to check your schedule or you don't have any time that day, whether it's because of a court or a trial or et cetera, you set them out a day or two they're going to be calling another attorney as soon as they get off the phone with
Sure.
you.
Well, let's also say this. We've been talking about enterprise, and let's incorporate what we've spoke about to an enterprise scenario,
Yes.
right? Where you have these larger firms, and they're spending millions of dollars a year in advertising, right? And they're competing, and we're giving them an opportunity with this enterprise scenario, right, to lock down that client right out of the gate.
Right, because the enterprise takes all of the tools that we're talking about for Consult and makes it into a proprietary app for the firm. In
Right.
other words, it is the firm's,
It's their own. They own
their
it.
own app.
They own it.
And
You
so
go on the Google, you go to
Right.
Google Play, or you go to the App Store, you download said attorney's app because you're like, okay, this is who I want to call, this is who I want to go to, and you call them, and it's like, boom, you're immediately in the queue, you're immediately ready to go, and then you're speaking to somebody then.
Right. And if you were to go, let's say, to the App Store and you were to punch in Consult Legal, you would come up with the Consult icon, and you can download our app. But if you were looking for the specific firm, you just type in
Yep.
their firm,
Yep.
and they have their own icon,
Yep.
which is actually their own app built on our platform.
Which we'll start to see in some commercials here in the next couple
Sure.
of months
Yeah.
with some said attorneys.
And it's their own proprietary app.
Right.
And it's distributed through all the attorneys in their firm, and they're going to have, where you can go in and check, and there's a list of attorneys, and, they can either have someone assigned to a case, or the client, if they're asking for a specific attorney, they just hit their name and they go on to the call with them. It avoids so many, I don't want to say avoids it, more or less.
It's retooling. It's
addresses,
retooling.
it addresses a lot of logistical difficulties that have always existed in
Time
the system.
constraints.
Right.
We've read, ad nauseum, article upon article upon article that's being written, right, about the future of law, not just with COVID,
Right.
but just where it's moving.
Right.
and-
Everything's going to the digital world.
Yeah.
And mobility is now becoming a colossal factor in the legal profession.
Well, also, how much have we read? We talk about access to justice, and we'll get into this a little bit more specifically down the line,
Right.
in just about that. But when we talk, and we'll use Utah as an example because they're working on some sandbox studies right now about making and considering outside sources funding law or the legal profession, right, to make and implement technology, infuse the legal industry with more monies, right, alternative practices, right, to make law more affordable to the general public.
Correct.
We're doing that.
Yes.
We have a tool that if you implement it into your practice, you will save, if it's a large practice, hundreds, if not thousands of hours per month, right?
Correct.
Or year, right? That's only going to do what? Contribute back to your bottom line and make you more profitable and make you look, you're going to be more efficient. You're going to be more profitable. You're going to be more organized, right?
Well,
and it's like this. It's a shiny like toy, right? It's like, how cool is that?
It is cool, and what makes it cool, even cooler, is
More cool?
or more cool, or more cooler.
No, that's a double.
But for the client's perspective, because what is, according to almost every bar association we've studied, one of the major complaints of clients.
I don't know what's happening with my case.
Right. Lack of or poor communication with the attorney.
Yep.
Because obviously everybody's got their schedules going
Listen,
on.
one of my favorite parts at the beginning of every month, right? Or actually the first week in, because the reports they're trailing a week. But
Right.
how many disciplinary reports do we read every month?
Yeah. They walk into a hearing and haven't seen their attorney since the time they were retained.
Or guys that get disbarred from
Right, or-
just
or-
completely blowing people off. And you're think about, and maybe it's just what do we call that? Social Darwinism or career Darwinism, right? Where you get shit canned for not doing your job, and you were probably had a history of behaving that way, and finally it caught up to you. We'll call it career Darwinism, I guess, at that point in time, right? But we're throwing you a rope,
right?
You got to grab it, you got to get on board, and you got to use this and implement this into your firm's practice.
And frankly, it could not be simpler. It's a matter of just.
It's gentler on your stomach.
It's like Pepto-Bismol for your soul.
Yeah.
It's basically a face-to-face communication. So long as you use reasonable diligence and not talk in the middle of a crowd of 100 people, on a video, but it's just common sense. But you can have that face-to-face conversation and do everything that you would do sitting at a table in an office without having to drive across town through traffic and everything else. And you can knock out 10 or 12 clients in the time it would take for one appointment.
Can you imagine if you're an attorney and you're going from Staten Island
I didn't
into
mean like physically knock them out.
Sure.
Speak
Figuratively.
to them, figuratively.
If you're on the ferry, the Staten Island ferry, and you're going to Manhattan,
right,
you could work and be productive that entire ferry ride.
Yeah.
And not miss a beat.
Not miss a beat.
You can make money.
Right. And the clients are satisfied because they know what's going on with their case. They don't feel like they're in the dark and, hey, I hired this guy and I haven't heard from him in 3 months and now we got a hearing coming up and, at 10 o'clock at night you get a call saying, what are we doing tomorrow? Mm-hmm. And then, it's an issue.
Big issue.
And, just take the criminal world. I mean, would you want to hire an attorney and then?
Well, I wouldn't want to get caught.
Well, yeah. Well, nobody does.
Yeah, I'm just throwing that out there.
And everyone's presumed innocent. But I mean, from a client standpoint, you retain an attorney, and then say they have the first hearing, say that there's a mandatory appearance that they've got to be at, and that's the first time your attorney is telling you, oh yeah, they're making you a plea offer for 9 months in county jail and some probation, so I think you should take it. And client's sitting there going, hey, run that by me again.
I'm Kevin.
Like I'm going into custody today.
I'm Kevin.
Yeah,
you're like, dude, I only put like $4 in the meter,
and now I'm going out the side door.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
Man, the dreaded side door.
The side door. That's usually where they have the holding cells in.
Circling back though to the tool, the quick
tool. The quick tool.
And when I say tool, I don't mean Chris.
No.
It's just another one of those, dare I say, features, functions.
I think you dare.
Feature that.
He who dares wins.
It's one of those things where like we need to do this while they're on the consultation. We want to add this, because initially we couldn't do that,
right?
And it's one of those things that just makes sense,
Yes.
It just works. Like we said, calendaring, documents, messaging, notes, tasks. You like how I did that in alphabetical order?
Yes,
also?
I do.
That's from writing today.
Exactly.
It all makes sense. It's one of those things where a couple minutes here, a couple minutes there, times 50 to 100 clients or a couple hundred clients makes a big difference.
Right. Well, take a task, right? For example, you're talking to your client and they tell you that in whatever particular situation it was, there were 3 people there, and I know their first names, but I'll get the information for you. Well, they don't have to call you back and dictate the information to you. They can simply go right onto their app and type in the names, addresses, phone numbers, how to get in contact with them, dates of birth, whatever information that.
Or notes, or you can take a note while they're talking to you.
Right.
Either way.
Or they can, you could assign the task and they hit complete and you go in there and the information's in the notes section and it's there.
Right.
And you've got it and they can see it and it's transparent from both sides.
And you don't lose it.
And you don't lose it. It's
not on that pad of paper, and it's like which, and I know you're probably guilty of this, is which pad of paper did I write it on?
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure you were.
Yeah, you've got like 15 pads on your desk and you're just grabbing one on the way out the
Right,
door.
right.
I mean, you try your best not to do it, but sometimes it happens, you know?
Look, stuff gets lost,
Sure.
but if you have it in the app, it's not going to get lost.
Nope. And everything is digitally segregated so that there's no.
How about sending the wrong information to the wrong person? Have you, like, if you have two Smiths and you send the wrong Smith the information,
Right.
not going to happen.
That is usually a very bad thing.
Bad.
It's bad. Yeah.
Very
That's
bad.
usually a mad scramble, and you find yourself begging the person who
Or your
receives-
assistant that's, a paralegal.
whomever sent the stuff is
Yeah.
like, no, it was supposed to go to.
That's a two martini.
Gerald,
That's
not-
a two martini dinner after that, right?
That's like.
Maybe a Xanax
Oh,
chaser.
that's a mad scramble. It's like, oh my God, it went out to the wrong person. You can't stop it. And now what do? Well, with Consult, you're in the person's, well, we'll call it a portal, and the information goes directly to them.
Yeah.
So unless they, for whatever reason, show it to somebody, which
What's
they
the beauty
shouldn't
of
do,
this? If you were to put it in the wrong portal, how quickly can you take it out?
you can just
out,
delete it
and how quickly does it come out, Chris?
like immediately. We talk about my
are we like?
my almost like my dumbfoundedness
I
and how
laugh
fast
at my giddiness for like we deliberately put documents in and take them out when we're working on these
With
things
the-
and
with
like
our- with
giggle
our
like
magical
like
satellite.
like schoolboys.
You know,
we
it's
giggle
like,
like take it off,
bing.
delete it. Watch
It is.
this.
It's amazing. It's
Yeah.
like you click the button and it's gone on
Man,
your
listen.
app.
If we could only put the sound from the computer on the delete thing when we do that,
Oh, the little dink, the little trash can. Chink,
yeah.
dink.
if we can do that, that would only make it that much. But we got to talk to Joe tomorrow.
Yeah, see if we could put like a little sound effect on.
That's what I'm saying. We got to talk to Joe. We
Yeah.
got to assign a
Delete.
sound effect to
Jink.
that. Well, that particular
Right.
sound.
Yeah,
is-
it's the little. It sounds.
our
It sounds
favorite.
like you're shooting a little
yeah. So
into a trash can.
for those of you that don't know, when
can.
Chris and I are doing the voiceover work, and he makes a mistake
which is often
almost every take,
not that bad.
we have to delete the file, and when you delete it, it makes this noise, and it's like the best.
Right. The only thing worse than the obviously stumbling over a word or mispronouncing
Or
it
even the first
skipping-
sentence.
or even the first word is when we do it in one take. Like how many times
Man,
is that? Right.
What was it?
The spinning wheel of death. It's like you do the entire 3-sheet
yeah.
tutorial in
Yeah,
one
it's like
take.
it's like 3 minutes of
like-
it's like
yeah.
a 3-minute dialogue that you've just recorded. You save it, and then you go to assign a title to it, and something happens with the computer, and you get this spinning
a
wheel of
little
death,
spinning wheel, and, it
and then
just
you
sits
have to
there, and
basically
you're
just
like,
delete it. And
Oh,
yeah,
it's like we just ran through 3 pages flawlessly.
yeah.
and
It took us an hour and a half to get here, and
it's
just
just
shit can it.
spinning and spinning
Yeah.
and spinning, and, you're
And
like-
it's not like I can reset something and save it
Right.
or override it and do something with
and
it.
it's not going to stop spinning.
No, it's just going to continue to stop because I've actually left and gone, "Hey Joe, can you check this out?" And he's like, "Oh, the spinning wheel of death." He's like, "Do you need that?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, there's nothing I can do." Then don't ask me, "Do I need it?" Just like just stick the dagger in. Like give me a good death, right? Give me a good Viking death, and just cut my head off and
Right.
let me hold the sword while you do it.
And then the presumption is, well, we whipped through it the first time. It shouldn't be a problem this time. And an hour and a half later.
Oh yeah. Well, listen, we've had all these. Yes, all of these scenarios are applicable to what we've experienced here. But listen, if you can't laugh about it, what the hell's the sense of living, right?
Right.
That being said, let's transition into some crazy
Yeah.
stories.
We
got
got a
some stuff
few-
here.
Few interesting things that have happened in the past week or so, or a few days.
Let's talk about the. Let's go with the Florida woman story.
The Florida attorney in the Keys, I believe Marathon, which is about right in the center of the Keys, down
Yeah.
more toward Key West. She apparently was impaired on something is the allegation.
Allegedly, right? Yeah.
Allegedly.
But she was speeding. That's what
Right.
started it all, right?
Right. It was 80 miles per hour.
In her Lexus.
And if anyone, and for those of you out there who've never driven through the Keys, most of the roads are
I've never been.
single lane each direction. And when there's one particular area, 7 Mile Bridge, which is
Right.
7 miles long, of one lane in each direction. And when you're driving on that and people are going like 70, 80 miles an hour, it's frightening.
Yeah.
Because they're like switching lanes and trying to pass people and missing you by like a foot. And if they hit you, you're in the water. There's nothing there but
Yeah.
the wall and then water.
Is there an emergency lane or no?
No.
Oh God, that's crazy.
They have like maybe a slight shoulder unless it's changed over.
Yeah, I've never been down there. So
Yeah, I was driving down. Actually, I had a deposition in Key West on like a Friday, and then the second deposition was actually in Marathon, but it was the following Monday. So I had to spend the weekend in
you poor thing.
Sloppy Joe's, because if you don't dive, there's some things to see down at Key West.
Oh, yeah.
There's some interesting. The Audubon.
Cats with 6
House
toes or 5 toes,
Yeah.
whatever the hell they are, the Hemingway cats.
I think they've got every type of liquor ever made by man down there. So anyway, I'm driving down. It's just one of these typical Florida deluge, downpours of rain. You can barely see in front of you, so
Right.
everyone's slowing down. Like
You get your
25
martini glass, you're driving in the rain.
at 25, 30 miles an hour, and you see these headlights come around a truck, and you're looking at them, and you're trying to gauge how far they are from you, and you're like, okay, I've got a wall on my right about 4 feet over from the car, and then a truck
Yeah.
in the next lane at about 2 feet over. And this guy's going to now try and pass this truck by crossing over into my lane. And you're just sitting there.
Yeah.
You have no control. I mean, if they hit you, you're done.
Right.
So
So this woman, 80 miles an hour.
80 miles an hour, the police, turn on their sirens, and apparently...
They let her up with blueberries and cherry bombs.
Yeah, they did, and she apparently, according to the police, ignored them and sped up to about 90 to 100 miles an hour, and went on a high-speed chase through the Keys in her Lexus.
Was she hoping to turn her car into a boat?
I don't know what she was thinking, but she was an attorney,
Yeah.
and
Is she still an attorney?
that's a good question. I don't think she's still with the firm she was with at the time.
We gotta look. Actually, we should have looked her up in the Florida bar to see if she was still.
Yeah, if we had more time.
Yeah. Well, we'll
yeah.
figure it out.
But anyway, the police eventually catch up with her. They arrest her for DUI.
Well, they're like, slow down. She's got nowhere to go.
Yeah.
It's not like she's gonna make a right and get lost.
Felony fleeing and eluding, drug possession, refusal to sign citations.
Did they mention what kind of drugs?
They didn't. They just said drug possession. But then she says, and I just know from years of doing criminal law, one of the worst things you can ever say to a police officer, like during an arrest procedure, is,
You're not a real
I
cop.
work for a big law firm,
Oh, jeez.
and they're going to hang you out to dry. And that she hung out with a lot of celebrities. I won't list them by names.
Like Tiger King.
Yeah, Tiger King.
Or if you're in the Keys, Iguana King.
So anyway, she tells them she works at this big law firm, and then she suggests that they go, rather than through the arrest procedure, let's go back to my hotel and get some pizza. So they didn't.
Yeah, clearly.
And they, I don't know if they have pizza at the county jail, but that's where she wound up.
Man.
And when she got out of jail, there was a reporter there, and
With the ABA, right?
ABA.
Didn't you say an ABA reporter
I think
was
it
there?
was a American Bar Association or American ABA Journal reporter, and went to ask her a question, and her response was, and I quote, "My comment is just that I'm fucking innocent. How about that?"
Wow. And now I'm going for some pizza. You want to go?
So she is presumed innocent.
Is she
but
still dating the cop?
I don't know what she's doing. I don't know. I do know
Is it
that.
odd for them not to specify the drug that she got busted with?
Um,
Because that seems ambiguous,
I
doesn't
won't
it?
say that it's odd because what they do in
Well, if it was
many-
cocaine, it would have been like felony possession of cocaine, right? Or a controlled substance.
right,
So
but
it's probably weed,
um,
if you had to guess. Speculate.
I wouldn't necessarily say weed because what they do, obviously, they don't have a lab on scene. They use what they call a presumptive test, and they'll put a bit of the item in there, and they kind of like one of
Is
these
that like
things.
a knife that they stick the coke in their gums?
It's yeah, right.
That's an old school presumptive test.
Rub it across the gums.
Isn't that how they used to do it in the movies, right? Like just dig the knife into the
Yeah,
middle
and
of
then-
the key
Yeah.
of coke, and then they rub it on their gums.
Like what was that? Who was the guy in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer with the gold? Remember?
Yukon Cornelius.
Yukon Cornelius. He would
Yeah.
throw his little pickaxe and then
Yeah, Bumbles bounce.
yeah. So they did the Yukon Cornelius.
Yeah.
And but they basically have a presumptive test. So sometimes they'll just arrest them for possession of a controlled substance, and it usually has a color coding, and it will turn a different color for
Is that Fabuloso?
presumptive fabuloso. Yeah, that's a different story.
Yeah.
Looks like Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Well, listen, I told you about that, right? You
Right.
know, a lot of the kids OD on that stuff because they think it's Gatorade.
Yeah, it's almost like the Jim Jones Kool-Aid.
That was purple.
Oof,
You know, there was
that is a
a
vicious story, man.
last
There was a
year
movie
Who
on that.
was it? There was a brewery in Orlando that created a. I think it was called Jim Jones Punch, and it was purple.
Oh, that's pretty.
And I was absolutely.
I was going to say that's pretty offensive.
I'm out there, you
Yeah.
know, and I'm pretty bizarre and crazy. And when you offend me with something,
Right.
you've done a really good job.
Yeah,
you know,
you
and
gotta
you
really
were walking. You were walking, you know, on the dark edge, dark side, and. You know, I mean, like, what? That was hundreds of people, right? Was it
Oh,
over?
yeah.
Was it 1,000 or it was like hundreds, right?
Oh, yeah,
Hundreds, right?
and possibly 1,000.
Plus
and
kids, you know,
Right,
and
children and
you,
women.
You do a Jim Jones, and they named it. I want to say they named it like Jim Jones something punch, and it was purple.
Yeah.
you know,
That-
or
that's-
Jim
that-
Jones something beer punch or something. I don't know, but it was purple. It was the same
Right.
color as the
the
drink,
right.
the Kool-Aid that he made.
I think it was it
might-
arsenic
you
they
know,
put in it?
I believe it was.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a. You know, it might have been. It might have been a. What do they call those? Water.
Like the color.
A seltzer.
Seltzer. Okay.
I think it might have been a seltzer. And
Yeah. That's pretty
I
poor
just
taste.
was. Oh, dude. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. There's. I mean, I know it's been 40
Right.
years, right? But you're talking about one of the largest mass cult. I guess we'll say suicides, but
Yeah, that
it
was
was
one
not
of-
voluntary.
It was worldwide. That may have been one of the first, probably since Manson, that
Yeah, cult. yeah.
was a mass cult suicide. But it wasn't just a cult suicide. They actually machine gunned those who refused to drink the Kool-Aid. And they killed a reporter and a senator. Remember, they flew down to French Guiana to
see what they were
investigate
doing.
because
Yeah.
the families were complaining and writing to Washington saying, hey, we're getting these secret letters from people that are somehow sneaking them out saying they won't let us leave. They're going to kill us. And so a senator and a crew went down there and they were on the runway and they shot them to death.
On the way out or the way in? Do you know?
I think they were on the way out. They were trying to bring people out of the country, and they said, anyone who wants to go, get on board our plane. And then they showed up in Jeeps and trucks and whatever else they had with,
I vaguely remember that. I mean,
AKs,
I was.
And, it was funny because my son Christopher was over one time, and I was trying to explain the Jim Jones tragedy, and he's 19 maybe at the time. So he didn't really had never
no
heard
recollection.
about it. Right.
No recollection.
He was like, "What was that?"
That's
And-
why I think they got away with this particular scenario. Was that not enough people remembered or knew?
Right.
That those millennials and Gen Zs
Yes.
did not know that, and a lot of the Gen Xers, such as myself, not everybody. It wasn't like you had cable back then,
Right,
So
exactly.
if you didn't get 269, you didn't see it. But that was a huge story.
Oh yeah. So just by happenstance, I turned on Netflix, and under the documentary section, they actually had a documentary on Jonestown, and I watched it with him. And after he watched it, he was like incredulous. He was like, "That really happened?" I mean, that's
who
like a
the
true
hell?
story?
Yeah, like how you talk about
how did you
the
he
cult
talked
power,
all
right?
these people to move down there and
Yeah.
in the middle of the woods, and it was like a brutal living situation, and
Right.
yeah, that was horrible.
There's been some crazy. There's cult. There was one in Rancho Santa Fe. I forget the name of the cult. I want to say it was about 15, 20 years ago. They were all wearing purple. And it was like in this Rancho Santa Fe is where Phil Mickelson used to live. It's a very Jenny Craig,
Oh, yeah.
just to let you know. And this cult, they were all found and they were wearing their purple robes, and it was like a mass suicide. Just bizarre,
Yeah. Okay,
Crazy.
another story. There was a talk about the ongoing battle of the gun rights. Apparently, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal in California. And the reason I picked this story is because California and Massachusetts have always been states that were not really gun friendly, we'll say.
Well, what's really bizarre is, and I find this to be bizarre because, you and I have spoken about gun rights here, and I'm pretty ignorant when it comes to them. But what I do know is that, and I find bizarre, is that for California being such a liberal state,
right,
they're very conservative in terms of your gun rights.
Right, exactly. And
it seems oxymoronic to me.
Right. And California's had a ban. I don't remember the specific year that it went into effect, but they had a ban basically on the capacity of the magazines. In other words,
Right.
it was like a 10-round maximum
Sure.
capacity. And
I think I know when that went into effect. When those two guys that were dressed in that armor that robbed the bank, and they were sitting out and they took on basically a whole town.
right,
I think that's when they limited the
capacity.
I want to say that was, what was that? Like late 80s, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say
mid-late
like
80s
maybe
if I had to
86,
guess.
87.
Yeah, maybe a little later. But you remember they were wearing like those full body armor,
Right,
and they were taking on, the whole town. They took on a whole police force.
right. Yeah, and so they've had this ban on the capacity for for firearm magazines, and the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal just overturned the ban, said it was unconstitutional under the Second Amendment, and said their quote was that the ban was so sweeping that it outlaws more than half of the magazines available in America, and that many major gun manufacturers sell firearms standard with magazine capacities above the 10 rounds.
Right.
Like nowadays, I would say, and it's a standard, what they call duty size or regular size, 9mm pistol can take 15, 17. Some of them are up to like 19 or 20 rounds in a magazine. Double what the state is.
Yeah.
Says so.
But they wrote it that way purposely. You know that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it can be, it's one of those issues where on this show, generally we don't take a position. We just kind
Sure.
of discuss what the issue is.
Well, if you look at the gang violence in California as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
The late 80s into the 90s, there was crazy gun violence.
Sure.
So I do understand. Look at Chicago. You look at Maryland, Dallas, Houston,
New York.
Yep. All these major metropolitan areas, and it's crazy, and I certainly understand the thought process behind that.
Sure. Well, a lot of people think like, well, why? Under what circumstance do you need a 30-round magazine in a non-military use or police use weapon, like your average citizen?
Right.
Others will argue I have a Second Amendment right to a gun. I can
Sure.
carry a 50-round drum magazine if I want.
Well, it's one of
You
those
know?
things that you and I constantly talk about. Guns don't kill people. People kill people, right? And and I'm me. I'm not a gun fan. I feel that they're evil. I'm actually a good shot, right? I enjoy shooting. I would enjoy going to a shooting range. But for myself, in terms of being like a fan, I'm not fanatical about them at all. For me, I don't, I'd rather, it's not me.
Right.
It's like one of those things, and I'm not a gun guy. You either are or you're not. I really don't believe that there's like a middle ground there, and I'm not. However, not being a gun guy, and while I fear them and I don't know, and it's a lot of it is my ignorance and knowing how to handle one, right? So
Right.
don't touch what you can't handle, right? And you'll know from somebody that's, pretty much an expert at handling weapons.
Sure.
I have the right perspective on that.
Right.
Like don't touch shit that you don't know what you're doing.
It's funny because I've always been kind of a gun guy from when I was
as opposed to a gun girl.
It depends on the weekend.
Yeah, just go with it.
what I pick from my closet.
Sure.
No, but a lot of the pro gun lobby are people that I've known in the past, former military, like I said, I'm from Tampa Bay. We got McDill there.
Yeah.
McDill is all Special Operations Command, and
Right.
you see the SEALs and Green Berets and Delta, and they're all there.
Right.
And these guys are the best of the best when it comes to utilizing firearms and what they're for. So you get around people like that, and they're like, well, they know how to use them. They're and more importantly about how to shoot is when to shoot.
Oh, sure.
That's becomes the big issue when you see these people running around and like, oh well, he threatened to punch me in the face, so I unloaded an 8-round magazine into
Right.
him. No, that doesn't fly.
Well, we covered a story about the guy that didn't have a mask on in Walmart here in either Orlando or it was Central Florida or Tampa.
Right, with the COVID mask.
Yeah, and
Right.
And he pulled out a gun inside a Walmart on somebody. I mean, like, what? That's clearly somebody that does not need a handgun,
Right.
But we've talked about, there's mental illness is running rampant in this country,
Yep.
right? This COVID thing is really flushing out and causing mental illness, undue stress. When people handle or how they handle stress,
Right.
And financial burden, you never know what's going to happen to them. They could snap, and something can happen. Like things can go sideways in a heartbeat. So it's scary that way, you know. And we've talked about, and we see stories, constantly about people waving guns or, But listen, I can tell you this much. And we talked again about the NRA trying to be disbanded as a nonprofit, right? They're going after, what is it, New York? Was it New York and Washington or New York and another state that were going after getting rid of NRA, which, that sure as shit isn't going to happen. How do you get rid of an organization even if the guy that's running it is not doing it properly? It's not the NRA's as a group issue. It's that individual's issue. Go after him, not the organization. So, it's, while I'm not a fan, I support rights, I lived in Europe for 6 months. I lived in England. It was interesting, although they're having some issues with handguns now. More than ever, they're having some issues with handguns.
The UK has always been pretty big on banning firearms.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we used to say, if you're to make fun of the bobbies, they say, stop, or I'll holler, stop again.
Yeah.
And
they have the little
they have
bobby
the sticks.
clubs.
Yeah, the bobby clubs.
No firearms.
Right. And so it's interesting, and I find the way we police is even bizarre. It's just, we have the police come and answer for, we want the police to do everything, and they're not. They're trained, they're a paramilitary organization, right? So they're trained to suppress a scenario. But people that are mental or are having an episode, right? Something that's triggered them, and they have these psychotic, it could be drugs, it could be psychosis. A lot of them, it presents as violence.
Right.
People with Alzheimer's, they present violent. You know, they get really, really nasty when they get older.
Sure.
So, you know, it's a shame that we don't have like social workers riding along with the police, right? To say this looks like it's this,
Right.
you know. But you know,
Yeah, they usually show up afterwards, and you know, I was fortunate. I'll say fortunate because in my career, I was a prosecutor. I was also a defense attorney, but as a defense attorney, one of the groups of people that I was responsible for was the local sheriff's office, the Fraternal Order of Police, and this within the past year or so, I was just recertified to handle police-involved shootings. So whenever a officer was involved in a shooting, they immediately seize the weapon, et cetera, and then they sequester them, and they are entitled to
paid administrative leave.
Yeah, union representative, and the union has attorneys on staff to represent the officer involved in the shooting. So I had done that since 2002, and had been on a lot of calls. And it's interesting the things you see. Like one of the shootings you were talking about, a mental illness, and and I've always been acutely aware of mental illness. I think that in our country, it needs more attention.
Yeah.
And that's an understatement.
We treat you know this firsthand. We treat mental illness as a crime.
Yeah, because you've got these people out.
And drug addiction.
One of the shootings was that it was just like it wasn't a domestic disturbance. It was neighbors. A guy was barbecuing, I guess, under his awning, or what do they call those?
Eve?
The garage.
Yeah, it's an eave, right?
The flat top.
Yeah.
Carport. And I guess. Yeah, the flames were going up and there was smoke coming over, and a neighbor gets in an argument with him, and he's got the barbecue fork, and he starts threatening the neighbor. And so the police show up, and they're, staying their distance. They're like, just stay where you are. Why don't you put the fork down? Because let's face it.
Yeah. Unless you got to flip the steak, then by all means, flip the steak.
Just make sure you don't burn the steak.
Yeah.
And then he charged the officer with the barbecue fork and wound up getting shot. But it's like, what do? You run a risk at,
Who got the food?
You're gonna get a barbecue fork in your neck.
Who got the food?
I don't know.
Neighbor?
I think I did.
Did the neighbor get it?
No. So put that aside.
Well, here's a perfect story of psychosis. You had somebody, and we talked about legislation, right?
Right.
And how you had somebody whose son was in a psychotic event,
right?
Because his meds were off, right, and he thought he was playing a game of Grand Theft Auto. Tell that story.
Yes, yeah, that's a perfect.
This is
example.
a perfect example,
and this is also a perfect example where I give a hats off to the police because they recognized it, and some,
which is highly unlikely, for that to happen.
And that was because it's a sad story because he was, we'll just say he was a very, very successful student. He was in an advanced...
Brilliant, right?
Yeah. He was in a university for postgraduate medicine, and he came down with schizophrenia, like legitimate schizophrenia. And over the years, he started developing like organic brain disorder in addition. So it takes, it takes months to try and balance the meds to see what's working, what's not working. And
when you say months, like what kind of period? 3 to 6 months, right?
9.
Because usually it takes about 3 months for the meds to like metabolize and get your
get into the
homeostasis,
system.
right?
And then to see where they're balancing out, whether they're working or not. So he was in a halfway house, and he was playing, I believe, the game Grand Theft Auto, which a lot of people had issues with that game anyway, because the objective of the game was you score points for committing crimes. And
the guy made hundreds of thousands of dollars that did the Russian voice for that.
Is that right?
Yeah, he banked. As a matter of fact, one of the later ones he didn't do because he says he wasn't making enough money. So anyway, that being said,
so
useless trivia.
He's playing the game, and then somewhere throughout playing the game, he went into a psychotic episode where he believed he was actually in the game, and he starts running around the community.
This would make a great movie if it
committing
wasn't like
all
sad.
committing all kinds of no major offenses, but like he would run up and punch somebody and then run across the street and take a rock and break a windshield. And he took like $3 out of some lady's hand while she was paying like a Girl Scout for cookies or something.
Oh my God.
And then ran back and gave the money back. And so the police are running around and they're like scratching their heads. They're like,
Because they're getting all these calls, right?
yeah,
They're
they're he's running around the neighborhood doing all this stuff and like pulling a sprinkler out of the ground, just like weird things. And in his mind, he's
getting
collecting points,
right?
Yeah. And in the police mind, they're like,
Right.
what's going on here? And then, finally and thankfully, a few of the officers had been trained in mental illness, and they were like,
Oh, I thought you were going to say Grand Theft Auto.
no. I always wondered how many of them played.
Oh, a lot, I'm sure.
Yeah, that was a popular game for a while, and it was very controversial for that reason.
Yeah.
And so here's someone with a mental health condition playing that game, and now thinks he's in the game,
Right.
and a participant. And each time he does one of these things, he's hearing audible hallucinations that his friends are cheering him on, and but thankfully, they handled the situation very professionally,
Yeah.
and it wound up being taken care of in a positive fashion.
Yeah. Well, explain the importance of legislation and what happened at that time.
Well, at that time, they had
What was it, Rick? What was his name?
Rick Scott. I
Rick,
think
was it Ricky Scott that did that?
Yeah, I think right around the time they had what they could. I don't remember if they were SRCs or what they were called, but they were basically mid-range treatment centers. And because of, like we were talking about, with certain mental illnesses or mental conditions, it takes more extended periods of time to balance meds and make sure everything's working. And they basically got rid of them for budgetary reasons.
Like basically overnight, right?
Yeah. So it was like, okay, 30-day max, of keeping them in there. And, not only did it put like probably thousands of mental health workers out of work, but they had nowhere to put these people. So the police were like, what are we supposed to do with them? We put them in a 30-day center. On the 31st, 32nd day, they're going to be back out, and we're going to be arresting them again for something. So, what do we do? Some of these people are living under bridges and overpasses because they have nowhere to go.
Right.
And it's a really sad issue, but it's like, what do you do?
Right.
So it was really a lot of interesting issues in that particular situation. Fortunately, he was from a really good family, and they were able to take care of it
because he had somebody advocating for him.
Right, but
you take a person like that with no resources,
exactly,
right?
or
their
families,
or no family,
family,
or is indigent,
right,
and then you got yourself a lifer. You got a guy that's in prison for life. Because his chemicals are off,
Right, and it could have turned violent at any given time. Fortunately, it didn't. But
he's lucky he didn't get shot.
Know.
I mean, let's say what it is, right? In today's world, nobody gets shot in the leg, which I find bizarre. They all teach them for the kill shot, which I don't know. It just it's a shame, but that's a good story because it shows how if with the proper training.
Right.
You can look at stuff like that,
and it's also, I think, a good example of like a multifaceted, story because, first of all, it's true.
System failure.
It shows the system. It shows the police perspective. It shows his perspective,
family's
perspective.
Right. Yeah.
All of these people who are involved in this clearly odd situation. And
tragic situation.
And it was tragic, but I won't say the nice part, but the good part of it was that there was, I think it was either a sergeant or a couple of people who got together and said, okay, this is not your typical situation.
Sure.
We got to handle this differently. They approached him differently. Everyone put their weapons away. It was more of a calm thing. And then they started talking to him. And
nobody was killed.
And nobody was hurt.
Yeah.
And he wasn't hurt.
Right. Well,
And he actually surrendered. And
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
do you need me to do? And they were like, get on the ground. And
well,
then,
you had made
you know,
mention that he asked if he got points for something, right?
Yeah.
To the cops.
Yeah. And they were like, what is he talking about points? And then someone kind of put two and two together. It's like, and I think they asked him, like, do you play video games? He was like, yeah, I was, you know, and he thought he was in the game. And then they were like, light bulb.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. He thinks he's in the game.
The aha moment.
Yeah. And so fortunately,
And actually, the charges were dropped against him, correct? Or they were.
it was, well, the prosecutor's office was, and here's another positive. The prosecutor's office obviously, you know, recognized it. And when they talked to the officers and I talked to them and stuff, and it was resolved in a manner that was actually, because you hear so many
beneficial
times,
to all
right,
parties, right?
and him too, because it was basically all treatment oriented.
Sure.
And the family, you know, was involved, so
Yeah.
he got the treatment. Everything worked out well. But like you said, in many cases, that's not the case. And,
Well, in the wrong neighborhood, he's getting shot
oh yeah,
in a heartbeat.
oh yeah,
You know, it's like one of those things where too, and you know, I've you come across these scenarios and you hear of you know, somebody getting shot in a scenario, and it's like, well, did the cops just run out of patience? Did they say, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes it's like, look, just stand down, you know, just wait, you know.
Right.
And I know that it's tense, and I know if barring a hostage scenario, right? But you know, you never know. You never
right.
know.
Well, you know, because you've got personalities involved, and let's say if you've got someone
Ego.
who's or someone who's inherently got a violent streak.
Yeah.
You know, the police are trained to immediately take, you know, control of the situation and take command of the situation. A lot of times that's with forceful use, maybe profanity or what have
Yeah.
you. And people will talk about, well, is it professional to use the F word if you're a cop and stuff? But it's not necessarily because they're being profane. It's because there's something about the profanity that adds to the, how would you say, the
It escalates.
right, the aggressive nature
Sure.
of it. But some defendants will counteract with that by getting more violent.
It's called mirroring.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I knew a local police officer who dated somebody that I knew, and he referred to everybody as a scumbag.
Yeah, there's some of those out there too.
That
Yep.
scumbag, and we're going back into the 80s and early 90s, right? And
Yeah,
I always was
they
just
can get very
like,
judgmental and holier than thou.
But he
and-
just was a jerk.
Yeah.
You know, he just was just a career, you know, dick.
yeah,
And I don't mean detective. He just you know, he just was not he just no respect for humanity.
yeah,
You know, and unfortunately, and I understand that people could be tarnished by the job, but he went into it as a dick, you know?
Yeah.
And he showed no respect for really anybody that he ever came across.
yeah. We used to have a little phrase for that: more badge than brains.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and a small penis.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
So
How that
sorry,
fits in,
sorry
but-
about his winky.
Yeah. Wasn't there a quote by that? Oh yeah, last show we had that where a judge actually said that to someone in a
yeah. And
domestic
I'm not
violence
an
case.
anatomist.
Yeah, I'm not an anatomist. He's
Yeah.
got other insecurities,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I won't talk about them because I'm not an anatomist.
There you go.
Nice quote.
All right.
So
well,
you had a few things, didn't you?
I did.
No, no, no.
We'll save a couple for
Okay.
Friday because I think there might be a little bit more fitting for a Friday show.
Sure.
But we'll get out of here. It's been wow, it's been an hour and 15 minutes
Wow.
already. So
Okay.
time flew.
Yep.
Thanks for everybody listening. We'll be back here on Friday. And this has been Real Talk with Consult. I'm Nick, and we got Christopher G. Fry in here, the ESQ,
And the Consult Quick Tool.
the Consult Quick Tool.
Make
Anyway,
things
guys.
very quicker and much more efficient.
There you go.